Hello, thank you for coming back. It's always a good sign. My name is Bob Greenyer, if you didn't catch it earlier, and I have been a volunteer for the last 12 years for a not-for-profit called the Martin Fleischmann Memorial Project. Who knows who Martin Fleischmann was? Quite a few. Does anyone want to offer their perspective? Martin Fleischmann was born here in the Czech Republic, in Karlovy Vary. It's a spa town, popular with Russians until a few years ago. And he fled pre-war with his family to my hometown of Worthing, where I was born. He went to my father's school a couple of years ahead of him. So I kind of feel a little bit of kinship with this man. It was literally 15 minutes from the house I was born into to where he went to school. In 1989, at the end of about a 5-year research program with one Stanley Pons, an American and French national, he was kind of forced into a situation where he had to release information early on the research they had been doing, which was given the name by one Stephen E. Crivet. No, that's the wrong Steve. Stephen E. Jones. Sorry, Stephen Crivet, he's a journalist, a very good journalist. Stephen Jones, that it gave it the name cold fusion. They never really liked the name cold fusion. They didn't know whether it was really fusion. They didn't really know what temperature it was actually doing it at. But something was going on that was interesting. Now, you have to understand this period in time. Stephen E. Jones was one of the leading researchers for the Department of Energy into this type of muon catalyzed fusion. So they were directly competing. And at the time, there were conferences going on all over the world, a lot of excitement. Big, fat, hardbound journals were printed about muon catalyzed fusion. And then to the side of that, you had the hot fusion people, those people making the tokamaks. Yes, the ones that still don't work and probably will not work in my lifetime. So George Bush Sr. gave his national labs 6 months to see if they could put themselves out of work. Surprisingly, they came up with the notion that they didn't want to be out of it, that it didn't work. And so I believed this at the time. I saw this whole thing going on. And I was very much into science. Back then, when people didn't have the internet, you used to get this weekly journal called New Scientist. It was about this thick. And I was so anal, I read it from the top title where the price was, all the way through to the last job advert, every single week for years and years. And I saw this thing unfold in this sort of magazine science thing. And I thought, why would one of the world's greatest ever electrochemists do that to themselves? It stank. It stank to high heaven. Well, I had a child. I was very blessed with a child in 2008. But there was something that came out in the year before I was born, 1971. And it was this concept of global warming. I think it became climate change, and then it's all the sky's falling down or something. I don't know what it is now. And I believed that all the way through till I was 44. When I was a child, I made a solar panel, and I had loads of mirror tiles, and I would reflect that onto the solar panel, and I would collect the power, and I would put it into a battery, and I would run a fan and a light. And I didn't want any new furniture because I wanted all recycled stuff, right? And so I had my own power, I had my own cooling, And I had recycled furniture because I believed so much in this. My parents had a hotel, and so I made a solar system for capturing heat to heat the water rather than using the propane gas tank. I was obsessed with saving energy and saving resources. Well, had I not been, I wouldn't have started volunteering in 2012 for the project, the Martin Fleischmann Memorial Project. Sadly, in South Korea, in Daejeon, where I went and had the pleasure to meet 4 other like-minded people, he had died 3 weeks previously. And what I noticed at this particular conference at the KAIST Institute, the Material Science Institute in South Korea, was all of these different scientists were seeing similar things. It didn't matter whether it was in a solid state system, a plasma system, a liquid system. They were seeing the same kind of nuclear products being made. They were putting elements in and similar products were coming out. And there were 70 different theories, but they're seeing the same thing. So we thought, well, at least 69 of the theories must be wrong, right? They can't all be right, but the nature is telling us the answer. That is the thing that is right. And also everyone wanted to win the Nobel Prize. So no one wanted to help anyone else win the Nobel Prize by replicating someone else's work. And so I came up with an idea. People don't believe this, and people won't replicate it. How about us new guys get together and we find a way where we can publish the data of a replication live on the internet in real time and allow people that are watching us to say, well, how about you change this parameter? And live they could see the results over weeks. We called it Live Open Science. We pioneered that in our project. It was years before National Instruments had anything similar capability. And I don't know many people that even do it now. Well, you are going to see one of the cells that did that replication. You're going to see it on Sunday, the real thing. And it's because of that replication, in some respects, that the European Union have been funding this research for the last 5 years, and they may extend it. And because of the European Union funding that, the America's ARPA-E started funding last year. So sometimes you may not think that you have the ability to change how humanity moves forward. But we were lucky enough to be supported by the crowd and to be given a technology to test by Francesco Celani from the Italian Nuclear Frascati Institute. And you'll see in a slide or two, I was a lot younger then. Okay, so does anyone know what you're looking at on the screen there? Can anyone place the background?
Alchemy?
That is actually what does the alchemy, yes.
Okay.
So, warm,
Okay.
yeah, but cold actually. Actually, at any temperature, really, from nearly absolute zero to googolplex degrees, this will work, right?
Tile from an anchor they use to keep the walls together, but then they make a tile and so it pretends to hold together to get the symmetry of the architecture.
You're from Holland, aren't you?
Yeah.
This is what it is on a lot of Dutch buildings. If you go around in Holland, it's a wall tie. Well, the pattern is. Well, it's been used for a wall tie, that pattern. This isn't. But this is in Amsterdam. You just need to turn your head like this. Because that is on all of your lampposts in Amsterdam. Just rotate it that way round. That way. Yeah. Yeah, that way. This is at the bottom. You can see the water droplet going down from the rain. I've rotated it to show advanced energy systems with the flow.
Brilliant.
Okay. And this, to me, right here, I never ever expected to find that this common pattern is what is, I believe, at the root of all advanced energy systems. And moreover, at the root of nature's existence and how it operates. I hope by the end of these 2 days, you will not only understand where I'm coming from, but understand how I got so lucky in precisely predicting outcomes of experiments I didn't have a control of, that are done on the other side of the planet. And I say, you will see this, and they do it, and they see exactly that, right? That's when you know you might be understanding a little bit, and I hope you will be able to do that too. So the Martin Fleischmann Memorial Project historical site had 3 initial aims. These are the very first aims we came up with, and they have not changed at all. The first one was, show to the world there is a new practical primary energy source we call the new fire. Over time, I put open bracket eternal close bracket fire.
The alchemists called it the secret fire.
Yeah, right.
Secret fire.
The secret fire. Not secret anymore though, Paul.
No, those days have changed the name.
Yeah. And with our first experiment, which we started at 12 seconds past 12 minutes past 12 on the 12th of the 12th of the 12th, because those dates and times don't come along very often, we actually had success. And that was with Francesco Celani's wire. We've had success in a number of other systems since, and on the 2nd of January I had the pleasure to co-author a paper with the former thermodynamics 50-year professor at Taipei University in Taiwan, the main university there, in Nature Scientific Reports. And this is using a cavitation system, and you will see the latest images from that cavitation system, and you will see that it is not only producing excess heat effortlessly, it is also synthesizing new elements. So number 1 is well and truly done. 2, once shown, help develop people's understanding of what the new eternal fire is. The new secret, not so secret fire. And so basically, what have we been doing over the last 5, 6, 7 years is methodically going through the data and trying to get a quorum, a cadre of people to have implicit understanding so they can act as surrogates for the project, which is happening right now. There are, I would say, a good 200 or 300 people that really understand this, and I can just let them loose and they'll get it right. I hope that you, at the end of these 2 days, will also be able to understand my messed up brain and maybe be able to apply it. The last one is to help promote the development and uptake of the new fire in all its various guises. Okay. What I realized along the journey is this is not just about energy. This is about consciousness. It is about matter synthesis, transmutation, desynthesis, teleportation, faster than light travel, apparition, all kinds of things you cannot possibly imagine. It is, and I've been calling this since January 2017, the God's, with a little g, toolbox. And I firmly believe that the mythical creatures or gods of old, little g, were using aspects of this technology and pretending or putting themselves up as gods, or that to at least the little guy, they would appear as gods. If you saw the same pharaoh or person in the Bible coming out every 10,000 years and telling everyone what to do, you'd think, well, this is a bit weird. They've lived for 36,000 years. I died after 25. You know, a bit weird, right? Well, this technology also should allow for the pausing of time to allow for relative time outside of the structure to move forward. You will not perceive time when you're in there, but when you come out, you'll obviously be able to catch up with what happened. Okay. That was me on the 14th of the 12th, presenting our first data in Rome, and it was in a military base. And after I gave my talk, where I showed the data from the experiment, and you see we got 6 watts here, it was 12.5% excess heat. And that's genuine excess heat. That's not what they claimed in America with the massive laser confined fusion system, where they pretended they were getting excess energy, except they didn't account for everything else that ran the lasers. They were just looking at the laser input thermal energy to the event thermal energy output. It was not excess energy as a system. This was excess energy, power in, power out, we got excess energy. So, after I gave this presentation, I'm walking out of the room, and I'm just walking along, and I hear these footsteps, fairly sturdy, rugged footsteps, just running after me, and someone tapped me on the shoulder, and they go, "You need to add an alkaline metal." All right. And I turned round, and there's a general with all these things on his arms and stuff, and I said, "What, you mean like lithium?" And he just went, and walked away. Now, what I didn't realize at the time is that on Celani's wires, which you will see, one of these wires in the reactor on Sunday, Celani had added strontium, he had added barium, he had added several alkaline metals to the treated wires. It later came out that one, Andrea Rossi, his whole technology relied on lithium. It needed that lithium. Moreover, Pons and Fleischmann, when they were being supported by Toyota of the Toyota corporation for 5 years in France, they were using lithium deuteride as an electrolyte in their experiments. Why? It has a low work function. What does that mean? It means a lot of electrons can easily be released from the material. Why is that important? You're going to find out tomorrow.
What was the time frame of those 5 years?
Well, 1989 plus a bit, then 5 years. So in the 90s, sometime. I should know that, shouldn't I? Thank you. We fundamentally changed our approach to this research in January 2015. What had happened, we had been trying to get access to this guy, Professor Francesco Piantelli from University di Siena. Did I say it right? Okay, all right. And essentially, he was the guy that had been in Il Nuovo Cimento. It's like a very big journal in Italy, top tier journal. It's one of the few cold fusion, so-called, experiments that was published in a top tier journal. And his partner was a real nuclear scientist, Sergio Focardi at Bologna University, right? This guy was really respected in Italy. And if you've ever had the pleasure of seeing an incredibly lucid mind speaking, this guy was one of those people. He just oozed intense understanding of his subject matter. Very well respected. So they worked together, but how did this man discover it? Because he was actually a biologist. Well, you know what he was doing? He was trying to understand how a brain cell dies. So he had a little device, it was about this big, and a little supporting framework, 250 watts of cryogenic cooling producing liquid helium. Basically the coolest thing that you can make when you're not using lasers to try and cool something down. Yeah? And what he did was,
Cooling is it, sorry?
the second part was laser cooling. Yeah, no, it was liquid helium. Yeah? Yeah, okay. So what he was doing was, he was keeping this little brain cell alive by stimulating it between an electrode and a nickel bar. And outside there was the Paolo di Siena. It's like this famous horse race that goes on in Siena. But he doesn't care about that because he's in the lab, and his daughter told me he was even in the lab on Christmas Day all of the time. Right? He's like one of those scientists that every day is the same. It's only there to solve the problem, right? So he's sitting there in this lab, and the process is this. He's exciting the brain cell to keep it alive. Oxygen is flowing through, it's got everything it needs, yeah? And then suddenly he floods it with hydrogen to start the death process, right? And then what they do is they freeze it with the liquid helium to freeze the chemistry. And then what they want to do is find out how the chemistry is changing as the brain cell is dying over time, okay? And the reason they wanted to do that was to find chemicals that would enable you to go to the top of a mountain, or if you'd had a stroke or something, so you could end up by fixing some of the problem that causes the... Because what happens is the brain cell starts to put up defenses, and it means that it can last longer without the oxygen, but then what happens is it's put up too much defenses so that when the oxygen comes, it can't reabsorb it. So there's a fine line. So the idea was to find chemicals that got in the way of that. You know what happened? This one time, and it happened a couple of times, and then he broke the apparatus. The horse race is going on outside, and they're all running around, falling off their horses on this terrible thing, really, but exciting as well. And what happened was the reactor started to boil the liquid helium. It's just an itty-bitty nickel rod. Well, how is this possible? 250 watts from a thing that's basically nearly absolute zero, and there's no power going into it. How is this working? Something was happening. Now, in this case, I would argue it was cold fusion. Well, at least it was cold, right? It's near 4 Kelvin or something. Really cold. So he discovered the nickel-hydrogen system. Pons and Fleischmann had discovered the deuterium-palladium system. It had been known since the mid-1876 that palladium could store the most hydrogen. Anyway, so that's his claim to fame, and he invited us for a week to his incredibly beautiful vineyard, shared some of his wine, and we recorded on multiple 4K cameras, which will be released after his passing, him spilling the beans, right? So the one thing that he told us, which really stuck in my head, was don't tell nature what it is, let it show you. And so I thought, okay, I'm being told by all of these peer-reviewed journals and people that I must find neutrons, I must find gamma rays, I must find X-rays, right? What if it doesn't produce any of those things? I'm just burning my life on someone else's desires. So I thought, you've had those ideas, they haven't gone anywhere. I'm going to see what nature has done. So the project encouraged people, whatever their experiment was, to try and send it to us. We would try and raise the money to actually look to see what nature did, and then to try and work out what that meant. Does anyone know what St. Elmo's fire is? Please, tell us. Stand. No, go on. What is St. Elmo's fire? I'll come so you can be on the mic.
Flames that appear on the tip of the ships.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Usually, and maybe sometimes also the cemeteries around dead.
Around dead people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Corona.
Yes.
What was it called?
Corona. So it's not really lightning per se. and it's not ball lightning. It's another phenomena which is due to very high static charge, electricity fields. And it, as you said, on the masts of ships, they would have a very small radius curvature, like a spike, right? And this allowed for a discharge point, and it's a corona discharge. And it can go for minutes, many minutes in some cases, and it can end up looking like a big glowing ball.
I'm wondering, is that what, when the space shuttle was coming into the atmosphere, there would be these plasma releases?
Well, actually, that is plasma. So you've got heat shields. The heat shields get very hot, but also in front of the plane, it's pushing the air in front of it, heating it up. Like when you're pushing air into a tire, and at PV equals nRT, it gets really hot. Actually, the structures that we're looking at do a bit of that as well. So it can be some of that going on, because you can build up charged structures, but mostly it's friction. Yeah. So why have I got relentless on the screen there?
Because you're relentless.
Because now the motto of the project is, we don't care whether anyone else is going to do this. We are going to be relentless. Never give up.
Starting to sound like Winston Churchill there.
Did he say the relentless? Oh.
He said never. He never get. You have this beautiful story about Winston Churchill. There's
Come up.
Okay. I was going to do it very quickly. But.
Okay. So at some point, English university, I don't remember actually which one, I wanted to create a seminar with Winston Churchill. And we were waiting for this seminar a lot of time, maybe a couple of months. And at some point, Winston said, okay, I'm coming in, I'm flowing. So the pilot lands in the yard of university. Winston Churchill comes in the amphitheater where there's a lot of students, it's full up of a lot of people there. And Winston Churchill says, never give up, and walk away. And the organizers didn't understand that he's actually leaving.
Thank you very much. So this is Malta, and if you want to be completely saturated with the geometry that by the end of this weekend you're going to be able to recognize, to the point of it's sickening you that it's been dangling in your face your entire life and most of every religion's lives for the last several thousand years, and you'll suddenly realize, how did we get so stupid? Good question. Good question. Is it deliberate? Is it?
It's programmed.
Sleight of hand.
So, relentless, ensuring key historical work is not lost. With the help of donors, we were able to retrieve 142 kilograms of one of the world's greatest nuclear scientists that ever lived. And Jordan has come to help me capture some of that work and remaster it so that people in the future can know what this man did and know how precisely he understood what he was witnessing under the microscope, with a level of visual genius and looking at nature that I could only dream of being able to do with the equipment that he had at the time. A real maverick in science, ignored by the people in his field. Even in the small field of cold fusion, other than just a few people, largely ignored. So we want to create a thermal generator, a minimum viable product. That is basically done with Benjamin Huang's reactor. We are in a situation where we're not only going to be dependent on a small island which has got like 30 million people, called Taiwan, Formosa, beautiful island, that's what Formosa means. We're going to be dependent on there for our advanced semiconductors. We may be dependent on them for our next generation energy, clean energy. unless the West wakes up. It's a cavitation device, you'll see what it does. But I will show you other cavitation devices. There's something like 10,000 installations all over the Soviet area, North Korea, Belarus. And you know, that you can have our gas, yes, you can have our oil, you can even have our nuclear. We're just going to heat it this way. Right? We'll make it seem really scarce and then you can pay us more. If you live in a really cold country, it kind of motivates you to come up with a solution, right? There are these big health centers, you know, massive ones, and they're run by cavitation. I will show you where they have a list of breakdown and they can't even heat it more economically with gas in Russia, where it's basically free, right? You know, like everyone was suffering in Czech Republic because we get all our gas from Russia. And there's the guy on YouTube who's like just turned on all these gas lights and he's just got a 24/7 video with the windows open because he basically pays nothing for the gas. And he's just trolling everyone in Czech Republic. It's like, no! You had a question?
Yeah, just getting back. Why was he ignored? What did he do?
I stood in front of the luminaries in the field just 2 days ago. And I didn't get a question from almost anyone after I gave my presentation showing his work and showing that we had verified his work in no less than about 7 different systems and repeatedly verified it. It's surreal. And I tell you...
Sorry.
No, it's very simple.
So what did he do you think, knowing him, what did he do that upset everybody?
He did something different. Now, we didn't know what he had done until we had already replicated his work. In fact, we didn't even know he existed. Why? Because he mentioned ball lightning in 1993-4, and they changed the rules of the American nuclear science journal, Fusion Technology, so he could not publish in there. Because he mentioned ball lightning, a natural effect. You see, the problem is, if you have a cure that works for a disease, you can't have an experimental therapy. If you have a natural thing that cannot be patented, that solves the energy problem, who's going to make money out of it? You can't allow the solution. You've got to have a problem all of the time. Otherwise, you can't make money. Ken Shoulders the same. You're going to hear about Ken Shoulders, right? Yeah, you're going to hear about Ken Shoulders. Ken?
You're getting too fast for me to translate. I'm sorry. I don't want
And I can slow down.
Can you at least say the name of the guy you're talking about?
Kenneth.
The previous one.
Oh, Takaaki. That's his name.
Yes. And he,
Matsumoto.
okay.
That's his name? Yeah.
Yeah. So, tak se jmenuje ten pán, o kterém mluvím. And he's from this Southern Korea,
Japan.
Japan. And what did he do?
He did simple experiments
Udělal jednoduché pokusy tady ten prakabačí,
that showed
které prokázali,
that electricity that is 40 orders of magnitude a stronger force,
když se krát silnější,
not times, 40 orders,
40 řádů,
stronger than gravity,
je silnější než gravitace,
can cause matter collapse
může způsobit kolaps
and recreation.
a znovu vytvoření.
We replicated that before we knew he'd done it already. And we had the same pictures. Now, Kenneth Radford Shoulders, the second guy, that's his name, you don't have to say it, that is his name. He made the technology, the screening technology, to make microprocessors. He is the father of microelectronics. So if you've ever used a computer or a smartphone or a transistor radio, which had a little bit more extra functions, it was him, right? He did similar work in the 1980s and 1990s from a different angle, and he observed similar things that led him to believe it was ball lightning. And when he started talking about that in 2003, a researcher from Las Alamos told the curator of the Lenacana database, it's a website where a lot of this research is held, to remove all of his papers. From 2012 to the time that I mentioned these two people in 2017, I had never seen his name mentioned. In fact, it was 2018 for Matsumoto. And they are the two keys to how this works. And that it is a natural phenomena. Which it... Yeah. Well, you're effectively giving the God's toolbox to everyone. And that should only be reserved for people who can use it the right way. So thermal generator is basically done. We will generate, and we are in the process of making a minimum viable product. This will be a parameterized 3D model that anyone can take to a contract maker and make it for themselves. So you go and you say, people can play around with it until they get a better one, and then they can go and they can say, here are the STL files, it's just a type of file. And they print it. They mill it with a multi-axis milling machine or whatever.
So these can be decentralized everywhere.
Yeah. Number 2, direct electrical generator. You'll see how far we are with that. Again, a minimum viable product. I asked the community last year, just over a year ago, for some support in trying to achieve that. We did not get one email or one phone call. So I went and showed them a little bit more. Told them I didn't get anyone contacting us, and showed the patents that we are using that have already expired or were already rejected in 2001 because this is not possible. Right? Actually, that one is incredible because it was a derivative patent, an extension of a patent, yeah, that was already awarded in the Soviet Union, Union of Soviet Republics in 1992. And again, we had already replicated every observation that he had in that patent that was awarded before we were aware he had done it. So it's very, very real. So we know we're on the right track. So direct electricity generator, in part, it's either capturing what you might call chi or prana or Holy Spirit or many names for it from the environment, or we give it condensed chi, which is already hidden in ordinary matter, and it sucks it out of it. I wouldn't advise getting close to the bit that does the sucking. Just saying. Right. An element processor, predominantly for remediation of nuclear waste. This has already been known for decades how to do this. It is a total con on a taxpayer to claim that nuclear waste cannot be remediated. Why solve a problem in 2 months when you can have a problem for 400,000 years and keep money rolling in to the person that says, it's my land? Business. It's all about business. We proposed to the TEPCO, in fact it was 9 Sigma. It's an agency, it's a name of an agency, 9 Sigma. A solution to the tritium-laced water at Fukushima. So they asked us to come back with quantitative and qualitative data. We did. So they changed the rules. Said we don't want to get rid of the tritium. We want it concentrated. And if we can't have it concentrated, it's going to be diluted in the sea. Materials processor, it works on exactly the same principle, but a very, very low grade version of it. It was patented in 2001. You'll see what it is tomorrow. And if you've had any product by Kraft Foods International, which is reasonably likely, I would argue, it's probably been at least some component of it processed by one of these devices. It allows you to put in wet wheat and it comes out as dry powder, free flowing. That alone is one of the biggest crises in farming. Because if your wheat is too wet, you cannot harvest it because it'll rot. It needs to be dry enough so it can be stored and then milled. But if you can do one process where it's dried and milled at the same time at a grade which it doesn't damage the quality of the product or the nutrients, then farmers don't have to worry whether it's raining or it's going to rain or it has rained and when it's going to get dry enough. If you can take sweet potato or apples off the tree and you can convert those into baby food, practically instantly, the amount of food waste that goes on in the world can be drastically reduced. Again, we intend to produce a parameterized version of this device so that people can process their food into powders that they can reconstitute later. So all of that excess food you get, sometimes you get gluts of different fruit and vegetables. Let's get those things stored. The last thing is propulsion. Now, Paul would call it anti-gravity. I kind of prefer propulsion because then you don't need the body to push against. Yeah? Propulsion works everywhere. When you understand that you may have all been lied to about what is gravity, and when you understand how I look at it, which is the same way that it was looked at from the 15th, 16th century, right? You'll understand there is one common thing where consciousness, light, the thing that appears like gravity, electronuclear collapse, and production and synthesis of matter itself, all of those things can come from a common framework. It's the Holy Spirit, it is the Chi, it's the prana, it is condensed form, is the Philosopher's Stone. And so hopefully you will understand and internalize that the Great Pyramid probably was a device to produce the Philosopher's Stone. It wasn't a tomb. And you will understand the geometry and exactly why and how that would occur. Coming up tomorrow and on Sunday, you're going to be learning to see for the first time. Maybe not in the normal way, but learning to see the veil being lifted from your eyes. gaining an understanding of what coherent matter is. You know, everyone knows that you're more powerful when you work together. That's why it's necessary for you to be divided. Right? Now it works on all levels of creation. And you're going to understand that being able to get coherence gives you total control over the system. The coherent matter relationship to gravity and energy, how to manipulate that coherent matter, and how it may change the prospects of humanity and preserve the biosphere. And then, on Sunday, you're going to do practical demonstrations. You are going to do an experiment yourself, maybe as a group, maybe 3 at a time. This is one of the ultra experiments. It's very simple. You can try it at home and you can teach it forward. It's able to be conducted in 3 minutes to 7 minutes. Depending on your skill. A 5-year-old can do it in 7 minutes generally. And it produces perfect yin-yang structures. And on the yang side, it desynthesizes matter. And on the yin side, it produces a structure that looks exactly like the bar spiral galaxy that you see on the James Webb Telescope. Dobře, dobře, moc dobře.
But I understand at least you know the Webb telescope.
Exactly. It's not so bad. Okay, so and on that side is where you get heavier elements, and if you've got access to an SEM, you will be able to see that this is the yin-yang. It's exactly and precisely the ratio of the yin-yang. It is created by Om sound, and it allows you to create and destroy the black and the white, the duality of the universe. You're going to be able to do it yourselves. And then we're going to do a very, very special experiment I wanted to do for many years. And I want to do it with you. Radiocarbon dating relies on the decay rate of carbon-14. Yeah, when you analyze it, it has a certain amount of 14. It's 1 part per trillion normally. It decays from 14 carbon to 14 nitrogen. We will have a plasma reactor that was built in Hungary with Swiss money. Everyone feels happy, right, with that phrase? Right? Hungary, Swiss? Yeah. Basically, we will put the sample in there. We have a control sample of charcoal from Germany. We got Germany in the house. Who's from Germany? Okay, German charcoal. Who's from Hungary? Who's from Hungary? Hungary and Germany. We got the Swiss representatives here. We got another Swiss man. There we go, you see. So it's going to be an all of Europe effort done in the Czech Republic here, right? They're going to keep it at a distance because safety. So the venue we've chosen is pre-1900 pub owned by the state. And it's double height, and it's going to be up on the mezzanine, so you'll be able to see it at a distance, right? And we're going to send it off to a beamline in Lithuania that are specifically looking only for 12, 13, 14 carbon and oxygen and those elements. In that particular range. Incredibly accurate. And if we prove that this is the case, it completely upends carbon dating. And you will witness it. And it's done by 69. Right, and that's it. Thank you very much for your time. Do you have any questions? Have we got any time?
We've got time for, no, we've got time for questions, like 10 minutes.
Okay.
Yeah.